Hello, everyone. All right, we'll start with attendance. So if you are here and you are yourself, press 1. If you are here and you are someone else, press 2. Oh, wait. Is it usually this? Check the mic is dark. There's no speaker on it. Can you guys see the screen? No. No. How about now? All the way around.
It's like the best
All right, on to motion number 1. Whereas it's the first council of the semester, and whereas we have things to discuss, be resolved that council approve the agenda of the council meeting of Thursday, January 11th, 2018, as seen on the Engineering Society website, moved by Alexander, snap back to reality, Clifford, seconded by Jamil, oh, there goes the gravity, Pirani. Do you have an open?
Alex Clifford, Director of Internal Affairs. We have some changes to the agenda tonight. We don't have the discussion period at the end anymore. And I believe that's it. Oh, sorry, we actually have on the motion for the community outreach. Maybe bring it to the
Juliana Jean, Vice President of Student Affairs. I just flubbed the wording a little bit for motion number 4. So it says that we're approving policy and bylaw, which is approving the first reading of the changes to bylaw. I included the policy to give everyone context for what will be happening next week. But this week it's just first reading of changes to bylaw. So we'll, Jamil has like an edited version of the wording that we'll say.
All right. Be resolved that council approved the agenda of the council meeting of Thursday, January 11, 2018, as seen on the Engineering Society website, moved by Alexander Clifford, seconded by Jamil Pirani, all 4. Remember to click as well. All opposed? Motion passes. On to motion number 2. Whereas some things happened last council, and whereas we need to approve them, be resolved that council approve the minutes of the council meeting of Thursday, November 23rd, 2017, as seen on the Engineering Society website, moved by Alexander, you're not Leah, Clifford, seconded by Libby, sharp observation, Anderson. Do you have nothing for this one? Nope. All right. Be resolved that council approve the minutes of the council meeting of Thursday, November 23rd, 2017, as seen on the Engineering Society website. All 4. All opposed? Motion passes. On to break.
Sit back.
We got pepperoni, don't worry. Don't worry, we're good.
I go in better.
Pass the plates back down.
Does anyone else want Is that magic?
A little bit.
Really?
Like I'm doing it, never click back in.
Actually, like sweating. that's probably
Oh my god, not. No, kill me.
If we got rid of this part, what are we going to say? First, we probably like
You smash it.
I'm showing up to him. Mark forgiven us. He invested time. My GPA.
Nope. Remember this again? It's like $7 at the bookstore. Why would you spend $7 on a pen? Yeah. Just so you remember.
What if I do it again?
Oh, holy reloaded. I was gonna say. You got plenty of computer. This is like new. Like it was writing like this. Oh, I know that one. Damn it, Julian. Doesn't work.
You gotta get the professional stuff. Oh, that's a good one.
I'm gonna go so like not that desperate. I don't know. I'll just go probably. She's not with us. I don't have anything.
So Libby, are you here for
Use it if you want.
All right, now we'll move into speaker's business, which is my business. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement that Queens is situated on the traditional grounds of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a tremendous break. Yeah, we'll get right into it. We'll be passing around the attendance book, so make sure you sign that. There's also a proxy book, so if you're a proxy, make sure that before you leave, you sign this. And there's also council candy going around. Council candy is 25 cents, and the proceeds from that go towards funding Jackiversaries, so people can wear their wonderful GPAs. Yeah, so with that, we will move into presentations with the JDuck redevelopment.
Yeah, I will.
This is no one.
Hi everyone! So thank you so much for having us. I'm Jen Lee, I'm your AMS president.
And I'm Chelsea Olive, the Vice President of Operations for the AMS.
So we're here tonight just to talk a little bit more about a project that we've been pursuing along with the SGPS and the university, which is a major redevelopment of the John Deutsch University Center, or the JDEC. So just to give you some context, and then we'll go into the goals of the redevelopment project, and then turn it over to you guys so that we can understand what you would want to see in a new building, what you think of the building right now, and anything that you would want us to prioritize in conversations with the university and with the architects. So the JDEC has a long history for student life, and it's the hub for a lot of groups on campus. And it's a 24-hour study space, there are club rooms, the AMS offices are there, and they have a lot of club offices as well. And so I think the idea is that it really becomes that central hub for student life on campus beyond the classroom. So knowing that engineering students, you guys have the ILC, and commerce students have Goods Hall, we really want the JDEC to become that hub for all students on campus, somewhere that every student, regardless of the year of study, of their program, whether they're an undergraduate or graduate student, they have somewhere to go and call their own. And this project has been in the works for a few years now. So it's the culmination of a few years of AMS executives. And I think what's different about this year is that we finally have the university on side, willing to contribute to the project, willing to sponsor it as a project sponsor, and really move it through the stages of approval, as well as securing it as an advancement priority, which means that the advancement team is going out and securing donations from alumni and benefactors for this project. So the current state of the building, if you've ever walked through it, is not necessarily something that you want to be proud of and call the hub for student life. It's at the heart of campus at UNU, and it has a lot of history, and you can see the tradition, the limestone facade, but it also means that it's an old building from the 1960s that hasn't been touched since the 1960s. So you'll notice that the building is inaccessible, with only one entrance along University that has an accessible doorway, and then one service elevator in the building for use, which is not something that we want for students that need to get into the building and get through the building safely. There is a lack of club space and study space. So the only space that clubs can book out is on the 3rd floor, and then the bigger rooms would be Wallace Hall, the Blotton Hall, and Colson Room. So for the amount of clubs that we have, over 250, and for a lot of the student groups that we have on campus, it's not enough for what we want to allow student groups to do their own activities. And I think what we've been hearing over the past few years is that study space is a continuing concern for students. So we know that the libraries are at capacity, and in order to create these spaces where students don't feel like they have to just go and wait and walk around the library to find space, we have to give these alternative spaces on campus. And I think the JDEC presents an opportunity where you can have a mix of individual study space as well as group study space. And then beyond that, a place where students can come and congregate and meet their friends, and really have it be a place that you're going to remember and think, yeah, like that's where I met my friends, or that's where I went after class, that's how I went to QP, and that's a place that reflects the needs of a modern and 21st century student body. And the final comment I'll make is about the student services that are in the building. So the JDEC is really that hub of student-run services, whether it be the Queen's Pub or the Queen's EC or Tricolor Outlet, but because of the space deficiencies, they're limited by how much they grow. So for example, QP doesn't have an actual kitchen, which is amazing to think about, but the food is 3 to 5 fryers and a microwave. Or Tricolor Outlet, we can't lower our prices because we don't have storage space to buy in bulk. So it's ways that we can actually improve these services that are meant to serve students and provide students with these learning opportunities in a way that in a space that would actually allow for that growth. So when I met with one alumni, for example, they thought, could you have a patio with your beacons? Yeah, anything is possible in this redevelopment, and that's why we're turning to the students to understand that. Okay, I will a little bit.
So really what we've been looking at in redeveloping the JDEC was sort of a vision that encompassed three pillars: inclusivity, modernity, and accessibility. So with that, we're looking to increase club space and physical space for events, meetings for you guys, maybe design team spaces, anything that can assist in allowing those groups on campus that are run by students to grow and foster the student experience that we all love about Queens. Updating those elevators and entryways to provide those barrier-free accessibility opportunities for all students. There just aren't a lot of ways to get into the JDEC if you are somebody that has accessibility concerns. And when we've talked to students, that's been a main concern there, so definitely addressing those needs. Creating 24-hour study space. A lot of people don't know that the JDEC is open 24 hours. And because there isn't really a dedicated space for studying in that particular building, people don't take advantage of it as much. So really hoping to take advantage of that and turn that into a study space for students. Again, increasing space for clubs and faculty societies like yourselves. Improving the layout of services to result in shorter waiting times. A lot of people use the Queens PC, but when we're around this time of the year and people are going in to print off like their course materials and such, there's a line running out the door, so as much as we can avoid that and try to make our services as student-friendly as possible, that's really one of our main goals. And really just on the basic operational side, just updating the air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical to make it a place that you guys actually want to spend time in. A lot of people have called it dark and dingy and cold, especially in winter. 6 degrees today, but when it was minus 30, it was not a good time. So just trying to update things and make it that more space. So the need for redevelopment. A lot of you hopefully saw that there was a survey that went out over Thanksgiving break, and that survey was actually responded to by over 2,000 students over that weekend, which was pretty fantastic, and there were a ton of engineers that saw it as well and filled it out, so that was fantastic. And 94% of those students surveyed supported redevelopment. So in our mind, there's a pretty widespread need, and we'd love to hear about your support for a redevelopment and how that would work for you guys. But overall, we're seeing an incredible amount of people really do think that there is a need for it. And we believe that students really deserve a modern, accessible space that we call our own. Student life is at the core of the Queens experience, and right now, unless you're an engineer or you're in commerce, there really isn't that space for others, and I think we can always be improving on the space that you guys have. Our programs are all only growing and accepting more people, and if we don't have more space to accommodate people, then that's going to be a bit of an issue for us. So we want to build that hub for student life, and we want to be on par with other universities. We want to make sure that we're recruiting the best people possible, and that might not be possible moving forward when we're competing with places like Waterloo or Ryerson or UBC that all have these like fancy new student buildings that we don't have. So this is really a chance for you guys to reimagine what student life could look like for yourselves and for the next generation of students moving forward at Queens, which is a really exciting time. That's why we've come out to so many of these kinds of events and really asked for your feedback, because we really do want to create a building that represents what you guys want and what you feel is important in a building. So our current timeline for construction is 2019. Coinciding with the completion of the Innovation Wellness Center, which is also a really exciting project. So hopefully in the next 5-6 years, we'll have that triangle of fantastic buildings with the Queens Center, IWC, and the JDEC. So that's the hope. And as Jen said, we're looking to get funding through a student fee, through university capital contribution, and donations for long-term as well. And so these are some of the conceptual drawings we have for the project. They are not finalized yet. This isn't an official design. We went to architects and we really wanted to get a sense of what was possible with what we had talked to them about what we were looking for in the building. So try not to get too attached, but this is sort of the idea that we're looking for. So on the front side, you see the heritage aspect of the building, so that still encompasses like walls, upholstery, like as Jen said, you don't want to get rid of any of that. But it's reimagining sort of the back side of the building. So this street that you're looking at is University Avenue. And so the back side would be sort of where the loading dock and that sort of area between it's called Clergy Street. There's no actual sign there, but yeah, that little area there. And so from this backside, you're still looking at University Avenue, but you're sort of at the corner of like Clergy and University. So that backside is creating a barrier-free entrance that is really fancy and bumpy and new, and allows accessibility. So you wouldn't have to walk into that back entrance and either walk down a flight of stairs or walk up a flight of stairs, which would be really fantastic for people that are accessing the building. And our hope for this side of the building as well is that that loading dock would be gone, and we would address that in the interior of the building. So rather than having that safety hazard, which is really uncomfortable for students to walk around, and especially when it's slushy and disgusting around there, it's not a good time. So we want to fix that.
And this is also, but you'll notice that when you're walking down University Avenue onto campus, there's no real entryway or welcome. You kind of just go from houses, and then it's, oh, you're suddenly on campus, I can do. So having this entryway to from the Student Life building would be the first thing that students or visitors coming to the campus would see, and I think it's an incredible way to welcome them onto campus.
And then that's just a little close-up. You got a lot of glass and fun things happening there. Always a good time. So we want to know what you guys are thinking. We did launch a website in November called myjdac.com. Kind of wanted to know if anyone has gone on it, seen it. We do have a video on there. Watch it. It's a great time. And on top of that, you know, what would make the JDAC a better space for you and your group? Do you have any ideas for new programming or amenities? And what do you want to see reflected in the project? So if anyone has any opinions, this is really time to answer some questions. So let's get it.
So we'll start with Vice President.
Hi, Cody Becker, Vice President of Silent Team. Or sorry, what's the long day? President of Silent Team. You mentioned student fees earlier in your presentation. I was wondering what the logistics behind that would be, whether they would start now with current students, or whether they would be towards students who would be using space in further years.
It's an ongoing conversation that we're having with the university, and the more that we understand about how a capital project is done within the university, the more we understand where that student fee lies. So I can't really say for sure what we will decide on that. We are looking to draft a memorandum of understanding with the university, which would outline when we would be making those payments. And there is a very strong argument that we would have to contribute a student fee prior to construction, simply so that we can afford to hire the architect and get a functional planning consultant. So essentially what that person would be doing is taking a look at our space and giving us some advice on how we could actually incorporate the space and use it to be a better student life building. And it's something that other universities have undertaken and really benefited from, getting the advice of an expert in that particular field in conjunction with the architect prior to that construction phase. So we're trying to get an understanding of that.
Yeah, I think like with all that being said, what students have told us through survey and through conversations like this is that they would prefer a student fee to start when construction begins, and that's what we continue to negotiate and advocate on behalf of. So the university administration knows our stance on this. It's simply a conversation about, as with any capital project, when there would be cash flow and when there'd be finances. So internally, we are looking at ways that we can ensure that a student fee could start at construction and find ways to fill that gap until then.
Vice President.
Hillary Price from All Regions. So my question is, you guys mentioned a few other universities who have just built new student centers. I'm wondering how the funding was how they got their funding.
Yeah. So with every student life center project in this country, and a lot of Americans as well, there's always been a student fee contribution, a university capital contribution, and then a donor contribution. So this is a very standard funding model, simply because students are, in this case, kind of the client. And are the ones benefiting from a new building. But the university also recognizes that it's the university building, it's on their campus, and that they have a responsibility to make sure that their capital infrastructure is up to date and accessible and modern. And so we have, when in our research, we've looked at a few similar schools, so Master, Waterloo, Ryerson, and UBC. Yeah, McMaster, Waterloo. And so McMaster just passed their referendum this past March. Waterloo just started construction in September. UBC has a new building built, and so we're kind of coinciding with a lot of schools of similar size going through projects like this with similar funding models.
And just to like follow up with that, what's the difference in price between the student fees across the university?
I do, but it's also different because of their population. So for example, like Waterloo has closer to 30,000 students than our 17,000 undergraduate students. And they also work on different fee terms. So I think their fee is $16 per term. So they have 3 terms, I think. The master's fee is $2.99 per credit that you take. And then UBC's was $100 per undergraduate student. And then Ryerson does not have any information anywhere, so I could not find Ryerson's information. So you'll notice that there's like a lot of different structures just based on how many students are paying into it, how big the project scope is, and then how long. So while $2.99 is a low fee amount, their fee term is 20 years. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot longer than what we're looking for, which is a 10-year fee. So 20 years of students would be paying into that. And then Waterloo's was, I think, and I can't remember the fee length, but like you kind of have to balance those two: the fee amount, the fee length, and then the number of students that would be paying that fee.
And then what's the one that was the fee amount that you guys?
So we don't have a fee amount yet. We've only been able to set, based on our consultations with students in the focus groups, we know like what an upper limit would be, and then we have to go back to the architect and say, can you build backwards from this, and have a design that would cost this much. So what we've been doing with PBS is getting that number, that total project cost number down, something that we're comfortable, and then we're hoping that by the end of this month we'll have a fee amount that we would put on the ballot.
On to President Blunt.
President Blunt, Vice President. I think something that should be a big focus or is a large focus in the project is, as you update the infrastructure, like common municipal stuff, looking at the environmental impact of it, in the long term, it'll save you money, and then also with either last year or the year before, when you passed your environmental policies and guidelines, and that's being your hub building, I think would be really good if those are met.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of the business case built in now is a sustainability section. So the university's looking at it, and it would be built in the building. Thank you.
Point of personal privilege. I'm giving my vote to Johnny. Oh, I'm PP Sinekin.
On to Member Select.
Taylor Swansky, member at large. I was just wondering, you mentioned getting rid of voting costs in the past. Was there an alternative for sort of shipments coming into the data? How was it going to get around that?
Yeah, so the safety issue that we want to address there is students don't have to walk around moving loading trucks and delivery vehicles and have to like maneuver their way around. So our solution with the architects and with PBS is to have an underground tunnel that would feed into the ARC loading dock, which means that you could have a pedestrian alleyway and that shipments would still just come in through Division Street into the ARC.
On to Representative Patrice.
I'm Patrice, ATMS. There was a lot of the word increase thrown around, using different kinds of study space and group space and all these different spaces. I'm just wondering, are any of these designs, I know we're still very early in that process, but do any of them increase the square footage? And how are you going to prioritize which of these different items get more or less space?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we are at an interesting stage because we have these conceptual designs that are helping us at least visualize it and understand what's possible. And then what we're working through with PBS is that square footage increase. So I don't have an exact amount yet because they've gone back to the architects to get it to something that would cost us a reasonable amount. Because architects just like increase everything and we can't pay for that. But I think what's exciting about this is because nothing has been set in stone yet, you guys, the students, are actually the ones who will decide how much space is allocated. So all we've done with PBS and the architects is say, these are the buckets of functions that we've heard. Can you fit it in communality? But nothing has been carved out, and nothing has been said. Study space is going to get 20 square feet, and design teams are going to get 100. Like, there's nothing that's been set in stone. We only know that these are functions that the students want to see. So the next year is really when what we envision is that the architects will be on campus, they'll be listening and having conversation sessions with students to fine-tune that design. And then hopefully by the end of this month we'll have that square footage increase and what the actual numbers. And what we're hoping to do is help students understand like that comparison. So, we're getting a new Walls Hall, we're getting a new 25-seat room. So we're working towards that.
On to Director Cook.
Darcy Cook, Director of IT. On the topic of student fees paying for building, I wonder if there's been any research on what student fees were made for buildings that we use now, but students at the time couldn't. Because I don't really think it's fair for us to say, no, we're not going to pay for something we're not going to use, when students before us have paid for things we used, but they didn't.
So who goes to the gym? Or goes into the art room. Yeah. The art was paid for by students in 2007. I think 2007 was when their fee passed. I remember when I was in first year, so in 2013, that was the last year that I paid into it. So the ARC is a perfect example of what students before us have paid into and have paid forward for students now. Grand Hall was funded by students in the early 1900s and was completely student funded to build where we have convocation now. Goods Hall, so the new expansion of Goods Hall where the Starbucks is, that was paid for by students that are no longer here and don't enjoy the building, as well as the new rental building next or across the street from Bottle next to Bioside. So this is not a different project. Students have always paid it forward. I think at Queens there's always been a culture of ensuring that future generations have that same experience and that amazing experience that we have. So I applaud you for thinking that way and recognizing that to a certain extent we've benefited from what students before us have done and contributed, and that we have responsibility to move forward as well.
On to Representative Howard.
Howard's already been back to the board, so just following up on the question Ryan had about what the space would be dedicated to, what consultation processes do you have in mind, knowing that we've got a really diverse population, really diverse needs, just to decide what to do?
Yeah, I think when we've been talking to PPS about what a construction schedule would look like for the process, we saw outlined in particular that student consultation was a big part of that. I think once we get all of the players in place, we'd be able to see what that would look like, whether it's just students would always be sitting on the building committee since we are the major client for the building. So you would see either AMS representation, possibly visitors would be allowed to come and give presentations as well. And then from there, what we would hope and what we've been doing so far is doing some qualitative research through focus groups and town halls and that kind of consultation as well. So trying to give as many opportunities as we can for a diverse population to give their opinion about the building in a variety of different ways.
And then the website that we've launched, myjbec.com, will stay open throughout pre-design and construction phases. And so that already has a built-in survey that we continue to monitor and that the architects would ideally have access to as well.
On to Representative Meadows.
Chaz Meadows, Sun 19 section rep. I'm just wondering what's going to happen to services. Did I say Sun 19? What's going to happen to services like the dentist and stuff that are currently in the JDUC and during the construction process?
So that's something we've been talking to the university about as well. And there are essentially two different options, and it's somewhat dependent on space within the university, about whether we would be relocating or closing down for X amount of years and then allowing those people to reopen their businesses after construction was finished and offering them sort of first come, first served basis for that space that is in the new JDUC. And that includes like our own offices and services as well. So we've been taking the opportunity to try and find ways for some of the student services that you guys rely on and really enjoy to stay open during construction, and really whether or not that's feasible is just depending on how much space the university has. But it's something that we're really passionate about, is trying to keep those services open and even the dentist open. But it is likely that the food services, for instance, would have to close just because they have kitchens.
I think it's important to remember too is that we're still looking at 2 years out for construction, it's 2019, and then construction would only be 1.5 to 2 years. So we're not looking at like a 5-year shutdown or anything like that. And I think when we talk about it, we tend to think it's happening immediately, but we do still have time to plan out and understand what students want to see during that construction phase. So we're not just putting together a plan last minute.
All right, so we'll just go through the last 4 people who are on the speakers queue right now, and then we'll end the questions.
I'm so sorry, just one thing. We were also hoping that if you guys have ideas that you want us to pass on to the architects as well. So as much as these questions are great, if you have feedback, if not tonight, then through the website, the survey on the website, because it is being directly fed into the architect and what's designed, and that's what we want to get out of the students as well.
So we'll go on to Director Vadim.
Sarah, Director of Finance. I just kind of had a question regarding, I know, I understand you guys are kind of in the preliminary phase sort of putting together a plan for this, but is there going to be any sort of formal proposal made available to the general student body before you go forward with potentially using student funding to fund the project? Just because if we are paying in part for this, I don't know, just in my opinion, I'd want to know kind of what we're in for, what we'll be getting out of those student fees.
Yeah, and that's something we're thinking of with the university too, because it kind of feeds into the larger, it's kind of what we're calling the governance of the project, recognizing that students are a huge contingency. So what we're thinking of is, would there be some sort of approval process before the fees get released, for example, or is there an approval process for the designs that get proposed and then are selected for. So that's definitely something that we're looking at. We just don't know exactly what it will come in the form of. And I think because students have already had such a large voice now, I think that's going to continue, and I think the university will get used to knowing that students have to be consulted before any decisions are made.
And our hope too is that through the myjdec.com website and the town halls that we're having and the consultations that we've been offering to various groups on campus, including design teams, that you guys will voice some of those opinions ahead of time, and that we can then feed that back into myjdec.com and say on the website that this is what you guys asked for and this is what we're putting into the building. So that's a process that's going to be ongoing as we're working on it.
Yeah, and if you do want to have that approval, it has to come through engagement. And so that's why we're trying our best to come out to these groups and to engage the student body. But the onus is also on the students themselves to say, I do want to engage, I have an opinion, I want to feed into this process before it can ever get to that point.
Great. On to Director Bernard.
Jordan Ferry, Director of Community Outreach. I have a recommendation and a question. On campus, there's not really anything for people who are neurodiverse. We talked about this a little bit,
yeah,
but I'm going to bring it up again. I think it'd be great if we had a sensory room or something along the lines of that in the new building, because anyone can use that, not just someone who is more what you would typically think would be using a space like that. But my question is, you talked about a consultation period being on your timeline. Is that before or after construction begins? Because some groups, they're going to have very specific requirements for a space to actually be usable for them, whereas other groups can just make use of a typical office space.
Yes, it'd be before. Okay. Yeah, so it'd be built into the design. There's so many terms. We're in the pre-design phase, so it'd be built into the design phase before a Class A estimate for construction. Yeah, and then there would also be feedback during that relocation phase, I guess, of what services, what spaces do we need to include in our relocation.
And finally, we'll have President Becker.
Cody Becker, Scientific Medicine. I'll try that time. So, considering that JDUC was built back in the late 1800s, I think it was.
1960s.
The building itself was built before that.
It burned down, yeah.
I know that.
The current iteration was 1960s, but yes, it did.
Okay,
there was an older one.
But considering it is a old building, and considering Queens' very historic architecture and feeling around campus, I was wondering what considerations were being put into trying to maintain that sort of architecture, that sort of history and heritage in the new design, because I know recently they've been doing the PEC and they've been doing a good job in trying to keep the facade and the history with that while framing it properly with the glass. And I was wondering what was the plan to in your design to
For sure.
maintain that.
Yeah, and that's an absolutely important point because we know that Queens is known for the limestone facade, which is why you'll see here the entire front portion, so the heritage limestone facade, so what you see on Union and across from Stockholm University, that's being maintained. And then within the building, any heritage designated rooms, so Wallace Hall, Wilson Room, Sutherland, and the memorial room, the War Memorial Room, those are all being preserved, and we're looking at, hopefully the architect that we're able to hire will be someone that understands the heritage aspect, as well as the need to blend in innovation, and something similar to the IFPC where you have that blend, and I think the problem with these heritage buildings is that they're old and inaccessible, and so the opportunity for the JDEC is in that back section, so the concrete block where Cow is and where Tremolo is. That's where the opportunity is, and then we can maintain the heritage aspects.
All right, thank you very much. We've reached the end of our speakers queue. Did you have a few closing statements?
MyJDEC.com, because it should, I know we sound like a broken telephone, but without the student input, we can't design and build a building that students want to use and are proud to call their own. And I think we're both in our 5th years, and so we've had an incredible 5 years at Queens, and it's been made this incredible because of the student experience, and I don't think we want to see that diminish in future years. And if we can do anything to make sure that students in the future have a place to call their own, to be safe on campus, to be included in the campus culture, I think this opportunity is an incredible one that I hope you guys will believe in. We'll be sharing more information on social media, so if you like the AMS Facebook page and follow myjdec.com, you'll be constantly updated, and then we'll also be providing updates to assembly through your Enterprise Executive as well. So if at any point you have questions, just use an email at jdec@ams.queensu.ca or on the website. So yeah, happy to take any questions. Thanks so much for Oh, yeah.
In a good direction. Exactly. Give it a few days. I am on my third. My nap time. This is where my roommates start like taking me out of the house so that I can fall asleep. Breaking back on your regular sleep cycles. I'm kidding. Breaking back on your regular sleep cycles. My team members will do it.
We'll create a fallen symbol.
I don't think we're missing anything. All right. We will move into new business, starting with motion number 3. whereas this was discussed at length last year, and whereas it never actually made it into bylaw, be resolved that council approves the changes to bylaw section 17 as seen in Appendix Award, moved by Taylor, I love it, Sawadsky, seconded by Alexander, it's okay, I guess, Clifford. Opening, member Sawadsky.
Taylor Sawadsky, member at large. Hi everyone, thanks for having me today. So this motion was discussed at length last year, so just for some context for the great students in the room, I'm the former Engineering Society president from last year, and Dean with us is our former Dean of Engineering, so she was the Dean before Dean DeLuzio, and she finished her term in July 1st of this year, I believe. So this award is sort of to honor her and a lot of work she's done over her 10-year tenure, at Queen's. So she was and still is a really excellent advocate for women in engineering. She did tons of work and still does do tons of work with WISE, and has been a really good advocate for women in engineering, specifically in APSC 100. So this was really discussed last year, but we sort of settled on this award at the second to last council. So as a result, we couldn't put it in bylaw because it needs to be 2 councils in the same session in a row, so that's why it's coming now. But I'm really excited about it, and if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
All right, so we will start the discussion with Vice President Babington.
Lauren Babington, proxy for side 18, VP. I first want to sort of just bring attention to the wording of the award. The terms female and woman are used interchangeably, and I don't think that that's entirely appropriate, as one is typically biological sex, while the other is a gender identity. I also want to just sort of bring up that everyone consider how when we bring gendered language into things like policy, it can create sort of the idea that there's sort of, it can give the impression that we are imposing a binary, which I know through involvement is definitely not the intent of this society, but from an outside perspective, that's something that can be seen. So just take that into consideration.
On to President Blunt.
I'd like to just echo what Lauren said, those are really good points. And thank you so much for dealing with all the discussions last year and putting this together. But some other kind of issues with the wording, the way it's worded that has been a positive role model for their female peers kind of makes it seem like that the person who is awarded it needs to be a female or a woman, whichever word might be used there. And I think that's kind of excluding like men who especially feel like there's a barrier that they can't be an ally to women in engineering, and that also excludes people who don't identify on the gender binary. And also the specific words of engineering profession. As someone who's been on the award deliberation committee, so that kind of narrows it down to PV stuff, and I feel like that's going to narrow what it is, but things in academia, still engineering related, and things in extracurriculars are still engineering related, I think should be an important part of it. So using something like engineering community or curricular and extracurricular engineering activities, something like that might be better wording. And then, so those are thoughts on that, but also kind of to go off of focusing on something that of course is women engineering is gender binary. I love women engineering, I am one, but we did have a lot of discussion about the mental health award, and I think that that was almost equally as supported by people. Right now there are a lot of things already out there from WISE in terms of scholarships and awards and other groups and committees that are there to acknowledge people who are supporting women in engineering, but there is kind of a gap for mental health, and that was a huge something that's really close to Kimberly Woodhouse's heart. So I think that is something that we can definitely potentially might be a more beneficial award to our students. There is that gap there. So because of that, potentially switching the award to being a mental health award would be more impactful for students and a little bit less help in that.
Taylor Sawadsky, member at large. Thank you both for those comments. I really appreciate it.
Specifically for the engineering profession component, it is really important to me and through discussion with Dean Woodhouse that it is specifically the engineering profession. The statistics really show that although we are sort of moving closer towards gender equality in engineering as a degree, that is not reflected in those who choose to become professional engineers, and really is sort of a big part of the motivation behind that. In terms of the mental health award, I agree with the amazing award for it. This was the award that council settled on last year, and although I do think it's a really great idea, I would sort of encourage council to consider adding another award and not amending this one.
So, Director Bernard.
Director Bernard, Director of Community Outreach. This past weekend at CFS Congress, they passed a bunch of stances in terms of what they're going to advocate on, and one of the stances that they were hoping to pass was a stance on diversity. That got tabled for 6 months from now because they aren't confident enough to include, it includes everything they want and it's not strong enough. I think that if we are going to implement an award that is more so gender specific, when we don't actually have any gender specific awards as it stands, we need to be 100% ready to back it, because if I see our awards as things that we celebrate as a society. So if someone were to go and look into them and we aren't ready to back up why we think that's such an important thing and why the stuff that excludes from it isn't as important as it could be seen, that just kind of makes me a little uncomfortable.
On to President Plum.
The one second president, we have like a different maybe wording that might be that is more inclusive. I just wanted to read it, and maybe we could think about changing wording, but I just wanted to put it out there so that people minds. That is, the purpose of this award is to acknowledge an engineering student who has provided support to women in engineering, encouraging their involvement in curricular and extracurricular engineering activities. You could maybe add the engineering profession in there, but I think having it addresses that really kind of narrows the focus of the people who can get the award, and then especially the positive role model for their female peers definitely narrows it down. And I'm not really comfortable passing something that just different wordings.
Would you like to submit that as an amendment so that we can discuss?
You can make an amendment in the first.
You can make an amendment.
Not the first look at but.
Well. We'll go on to Representative Vickers.
I'm Trace, Society TNS. Forgive me, I was on internship last year. I wasn't here for these talks, and from my understanding, I tried to look for the minutes, and they were all in closed session, so there was no minutes. As much as council may have decided on this last year, I just want to remember that we are the body that will put this in the bylaw. I believe that last year probably made a great recommendation, but we have to put our names on it. So if we're going to vote yes or no to this, just remember that you're not voting on behalf of last year, you're voting on behalf of yourself. So use your own opinion in judgment on that.
Taylor Swansky, member at large. They are in closed session, but there were minutes taken, and being a member of council, you can see them. Additionally, these discussions happened after you were AMS rep and were following along the live stream.
For the personal privilege, joining 3 Society AMS rep, I don't remember the discussions, so I'd like if people didn't sit
there. Okay. So we've reached the end of our speakers queue. Was there anyone who wanted to be added at this time?
Point of information. If we were to, Cody Becker, Scientific President. If we were to agree with the spirit of this and go into the second reading, then we can amend it, correct?
Is that up to me?
Yeah.
Is it not? Can we just do a double check in the rules if there's...
Just so that we don't have to vote it down and vote up.
Is that point of information?
For information, student affairs. So if the general idea was kept to the Women in Engineering Award, if that was the same, then the next time it comes to council, you could amend it and change wording and things like that. I'm not sure, just with how much of the description we would be changing, if it's.
So I would say
because
that
because it would be like more of the criteria of the award, less than like the wording. It would be up to you to know whether or not that's appropriate. The other option is just like withdrawing the motion and resubmitting it, but that's kind of how that works. But if the award was changed completely, like we can't pass this and then next time decide that like we would like the award to be about something different entirely.
So my understanding is that the spirit of the motion needs to remain the same between the two readings. So for example, I would say that if we were to remove gendered language as Vice President Dodson suggested, that wouldn't change the spirit of the motion. But if, for example, we were to decide that we wanted to change it to a mental health award, I think that would drastically change the spirit of the motion. So just things to consider as we move forward. Yeah.
Howard, so I'm the basketball rep. I was just wondering, I've been looking at the sentence, a student who's been a positive role model for their female peers, and although I totally understand and support the idea of honoring somebody who has made a positive contribution to women in engineering, I hope that that doesn't exclude somebody who's been a positive role model for all peers, because I think being a positive role model and treating all genders in engineering equally and with respect kind of is a positive role model for everybody, not just female peers. So could council consider what we would think of the resolution if specifically the word female was removed, and ultimately whether we could include women and people of all genders or all gender minorities or something like that? As what do we think about that?
President Becker.
Rebecca Stein, President. So I was actually talking to James Z. right before council, and he mentioned that a way to word it in that respect, to be more inclusive, would be to emphasize the diversity that Mary has emphasized in her tenure in supporting the diversity. Words are not easy today. The diversity in our program and continuing the push towards enforcing and emphasizing and supporting that notion. So, something to consider?
A point on that. Well, I would say that I think that change to make it from specifically women in engineering to just diversity, I think that change would be a bit too broad, especially when considering deciding who would get an award. So I think that would change the spirit of the motion. President Bonner.
For one exciting president, kind of running off of Cody's, I think that if you think that you should be making that change, you should, even if you have to withdraw this motion and change it, and if potential wording to something more general, which could include and probably would include women in engineering, but also other diversities, is awarding to an engineering student who has been a positive role model for their peers, encourage involvement in the engineering community to a diverse group of students, and has made a positive impact on equity in engineering. That's a potential one that is kind of similar, but includes women in engineering, but all their diversities.
Taylor Swansky. Although I do agree, diversity in engineering is a really important topic, this award is focusing on what Dean Woodhouse did for women in engineering specifically. Although the broadness of awards is great and sort of all of these different criteria are good, the intent behind the award is to honor what she did. Additionally, I would like to clarify that nowhere in the award does it specify that the person receiving the award needs to be a woman or needs to identify as female, and it can be a male.
Taylor has said, and we really acknowledge that, yeah, Deanwood has absolutely did some amazing things and made some big steps forward for diversity and especially the involvement of women in engineering. But I want to say we should maybe consider that in a broader context, that the involvement of women in engineering in our era may be a precursor for the involvement of other diverse groups in engineering in future eras. So I don't want to say future-proof, but to make this conscious of ongoing increasing diversity in society, it might be more thoughtful to honor her legacy by saying she worked hard for diversity in a way that was very cognizant of her time in engineering schools. And moving forward, we as an engineering society want to continue to work for that diversity instead of just restricting it to women in engineering, which, although it's very related to her tenure, may become less relevant. And we'll, you never know, as time progresses.
We've reached the end of our speakers queue. Was there anyone who would like to be added at this time?
I choose site team in MSREP. I'm just going to, I guess, echo what Emma said there. I would much rather support an award such as this if there was a broader diversity term rather than a gender-specific award. And so for that reason, I'll be voting against this motion.
Jordan Ferrari, Director of Community Outreach. From my memory, being at a lot of the discussions that happened around this award, we actually never settled on it having to be specifically a women in engineering award. I remember us deciding that we wanted to focus more so on mental health or women in engineering. So I don't think it's out of the question for us to consider the alternatives here.
Would anyone like to be added to the speakers queue at this time? President Ball.
I'm one of the present. If anyone knows or if you would pass on those minutes to others, because I know a lot of people looked into trying to find them and we weren't able to. I think that would be really beneficial. And then also just personally myself, I think a mental health award I would be a lot more comfortable passing than this, and a diversity one, more general diversity one, I'd be a lot more comfortable passing than this.
I'm just going to do a quick check to see if Avery has the
Information.
Yeah.
I'll send a copy of
Okay.
Point of information, because the Director of IT, if you allow me to bring on my laptop, I can quickly check if there is little on the servers.
For sure, that'd be great. Yeah, so with that in mind, there are a multitude of different ways that council can proceed. There's voting yes to this, after which, at the second reading, you can make amendments, but they wouldn't be able to change the spirit of the bylaw whose first reading was heard today. You could vote no to this, which would mean that this could not be, which means that this bylaw in its current state and in its current spirit wouldn't be able to be brought back until next year, so in September. This motion could be tabled, which means that we could continue discussion on it at a later date, or it can be withdrawn if Member Sawatsky wishes and resubmitted at a later date with more revised wording. President Ball.
Just for I want to feel out what a mental health board could sound like. It could be something like towards the dedication or to acknowledge the dedication of engineering students who through their actions can make positive impact on mental health and well-being of their peers in order to make things a more supportive environment for mental well-being. Again, there's not really any award in the engineering society for that, and even through other bodies that aren't the engineering society. So it's curious. And it was also something that should hear.
Taylor Sawatsky, member at large. So
in case you couldn't tell, I do feel really passionately about this award, and in the best interest of getting this award passed this year, well, I know I can, and while I believe in council has the best intentions, I really do believe this spirit is the most important. I do want to withdraw the motion to be resubmitted at the next council. I do want to remind council that if you have issues with motions, it is polite to come to the people that are bringing these motions before it gets to this stage, sort of make amendments prior to the meeting to kind of avoid this. I honestly was expecting a very easy pass of this motion, and evidently people have had issues, which is totally fine, but it does make it a lot easier coming forward, and it makes people like me feel a little bit better and we kind of can sort that out before you come. Also, given that it was a general consensus last year.
All right, so the motion has been withdrawn then? All right, thank you very much. We will now move on to motion number 4. Whereas the community outreach portfolio has grown quite a bit since its inception, and whereas it still has much more room to grow, and whereas some additional responsibilities could benefit the portfolio, be resolved that Council approve the first reading of the changes to bylaw sections 2 and 8 as seen in Appendix Outreach, moved by Jordan New Year Bernari, seconded by Nathaniel New Position Description 1. Opening Director.
Okay, so the changes that you can see in the document, and we're looking at just the bylaws this week, are basically a quantifiable version of what we've been talking about in the 2 discussion periods so far this year. I hope you guys had the chance to read through them. I fully support them. I think it quantifies what we were hoping to change about the position. And then there's also, if you scroll down to under bylaw, and then it's for one of the there was a slight wording change. Where is it? Under section B, 1.3 or 1.3, and then so number 4. Number 5. Yeah. In the version that you guys got sent out, it said acting as the ex officio chair of the External Relations Committee. That was just something that Jaden and I missed when we were updating it. It should read Community Outreach Team, same as in the policy above. Right? Oh, the wrong one was changed. So 5 should read acting as the ex officio chair of the External Communications Committee, and 4 should read acting as the ex officio member of the Community Outreach Team.
Are we fix it? Right.
So you want to switch 4 and 5?
4 should say Community Outreach Team, and 5 should read acting as the ex officio chair of the External Communications Committee. So.
This is why I'm not the
Thank you.
consistency policy.
All right. Is there anyone who would like to be added to the speakers queue to start off discussion? Yes. Okay. Representative Howard.
Howard Pass, Director of Community Outreach. Just for B13, B, I, and II, ESCO and CFES relations have been a pretty hot topic in pretty much every council I've ever been through the past 3 years. Does this actual change in bylaw mean that we are changing our relations with them in any way? What's it about?
Direct response. No, that's actually just the responsibility of the chair of the External Communications Committee as is right now. So that doesn't change our relationship with them or how we feel about them. It's just part of the job.
Representative Patrice.
Patrice, the responsibility of being in contact with other schools has changed hands between directors and exec 4 or 5 times in the past few years. So I'm just wondering how we settled on putting it in the portfolio of this.
Director Spot. So the Director of Community Outreach had more, I guess, openings and more connections to external relations than some of the other director positions, so it kind of fit nicely in. My big, like my personal feelings in terms of tying it to a Director of Community Outreach is it kind of keeps us honest. One of the problems that we had with a director or VP of external in the past was that all their big focus on it was the travel and the interacting with other schools for their personal enjoyment. If we tie it to something which intrinsically has the outlook of philanthropy and community improvement, it keeps the onus on us to that should be our main priority when we're seeking outwards to external bodies. So it also brings the Director of Community Outreach position as is now after all the groundwork was laid last year for it to a level working field as all the other directors.
President Paz.
One second, President. I think this is the best position for us. Someone who kind of took the external relationships with ESCO and CBS kind of through kind of a couple of different other positions. I think this is the best spot for it. To keep someone firmly on the position over the summer. I think it's a great job, and I'm super stoked. That's it.
On to President Becker.
Cody Becker, Senate President. This came up in our discussion with AJ a few days ago, and I just wanted to shed some light on it. But some of the, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, but some of the responsibilities that are being added to, or some of the responsibilities and changes that are being added to this motion are stuff that were covered by a past direct position, but were removed and were never reallocated, but were assumed to be under the president position. So I think it's a good idea to pass this because then those responsibilities are finally organized again.
All right, President.
Well, I want to elaborate what I do, President. I remember what I originally wanted to say, but just to answer Emma's question, even if our relationships, if for some reason we decide not to be part of ESCO or CBS, you still need somebody to communicate with them because they communicate with people like NCHAN, etc. So even if we decide to step back, leaving those in is key so we give that information without recommendation, things like that. So.
Right, we've reached the end of our speakers queue. Is there anyone who would like to add at this time? All right, seeing Director Delfar.
Nick Delfar, Director of First Year. Should we be consistent with the hyphens?
I'm sure if it's small typos like that, they can be fixed. Doesn't change the thing.
I think I need to vote on electricity.
Actually,
yeah, table the motion.
Is the amendment seen as friendly?
Good.
We can't vote it. Can we amend it? It's bylaw. I don't know. I don't know the rules.
I'm sorry.
First reading of bylaw. If you know over this, you can't amend it. I don't think we're amending it. All right. Is there any more debate on the motion? 3, 2.
Round 3, side, TNA Messer. I motion to call a question.
The question has been called. That means we will have a vote on calling the question before we can actually call the question. Okay. So there has been a motion to call the question. This means we will vote on the motion after this. So a motion to call the question, all 4. Remember to click. All opposed. All right, motion passes. We will now call the question. Motion number 4. Be resolved that Council approve the first reading of the changes to bylaws sections 2 and 8 as seen in Appendix Outreach. Moved by Jordan Pernari, seconded by Nathaniel Wong, all 4. All opposed. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Oh, sorry, would you like that noted? Okay, so kind of hard motion. Motion passes. Alrighty then. That is the end of our new business, which means we will move into executive reports, starting with the president's report.
Hello, Happy New Year's, everyone. Nathaniel, it's going down.
Timber!
Long New City presidents. No major updates from my end. The undergraduate orientation review working group. Again today, we've outlined a few kind of general broad recommendations now. So we've got 2 more of those meetings before March, which is when we're going to be submitting the recommendations to the principal. I think it's going pretty well. We're not in any place that is going to be taken away from students, and I think the recommendations are actually fairly reasonable that we've been working on. It's like collecting more data so that we can actually create better recommendations, or having really strong collection of training modules that we could teach everybody across all faculty. It's like establishing more structure in that sense. So there's like a wide variety of recommendations, and once we kind of finalize them at the next meeting, I'll definitely bring them forward. There's something else that I wanted to mention. Who said that? Sorry, I'm just trying to pick something here. People wearing blue. That's blue. 3, 2, 1. We are the engineers. We can demolish 40 beers. Drink rum, so come along with us, for we don't give a damn for any old man who don't give a damn for us. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to say. So we've essentially worked out the schedule now for next year's orientation. So because we lost a day, we were trying to kind of shuffle things around, but we've hopefully worked it out with the faculty. And Thursday night, so the schedule was Saturday, Sunday was going to be res orientation, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was going to be faculty orientation, Thursday, Friday was going to be class, and then it would jump back to us on Saturday for faculty, and then Sunday would go back to res. So that was the schedule, and then we were trying to work out how we were going to accommodate for losing a day. And essentially what we're going to do is we'll do whole on Saturday, we'll do Eng Day and banquet as well in that evening because we're losing this Sunday. And we're going to move the academic portions to Thursday night with working together with the faculty on that. Sorry? Yeah, and the first 3 days are still essentially like Wednesday, team ups, Highland will be moved to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I think the hard work is just like questions.
We do that.
Let's go to you.
Okay. Yeah, that's the general outline that we've worked out. So hopefully it'll be good.
Right, on to the Vice President of Operations report.
Vice President of Operations. Pretty much just been like keeping everything running and just doing all our transitions. Yeah.
All right, on to the Vice President of Student Affairs.
Juliana James, Vice President of Student Affairs. I was super jet lagged when I wrote my report this week, so I forgot almost everything. Volunteer of the month, I have that in there, but don't forget to nominate people. Sorry, I had to mention it. Director applications will be up before next council. They won't be due for another at least 2 weeks after that. But if you want to be a director for the 2018-2019 year, it's a really great opportunity. We're hiring, or the new exec will be hiring 13 positions. If you have any questions about any of those, feel free before the new people are elected, talk to one of the 3 of us or any of the current directors They probably do fine talking to you, so you can talk to them if you have any specific questions for any portfolio. So the new exec will be elected on the 31st of January. So after that, you can hit those people up and talk to them about sort of what they're looking for to hire, things like that. And yeah, we pretty much have all of our meetings, like our regular SARS meetings next week. So we have like AMS faculty board, advisory board is all next week, so we don't have any updates for stuff like that. And then tomorrow I'm meeting with the AMS building manager to talk about recommendations for the new JDAC. So if you have any like specific things that like I know I didn't really know what we were supposed to be telling them right now, so if you think of anything, just come tell me after and I'll write them down and I'll bring them up tomorrow in that meeting. Yeah, that's it.
All right, we will move into director reports, starting with the Director of Communications.
Vashi Baruzzi, Director of Communications. So just to elaborate on my report, we have a lot of photography-heavy events coming up. So this weekend we have 2 conferences and 1 event that we're covering already. So it's really busy photography-wise. As for requests, we've been helping Rachel McConnell, who's head of yearbook, to select photos for SciTeen, and yeah, it's going pretty good. And everything else is in my report.
Right. On to the Director of Community Outreach.
Director of Community Outreach, basically all in the report. Congress, as I mentioned earlier, happened for CFDS this past weekend/week. If you got any questions about what went down for that, feel free to come talk to me. I'd love to talk about it with you. My personal favorite things that got passed through are the stances on student workload and mental health, sustainability, language electives, internship programs, accreditation, a stance on the engineering accreditation, and teaching quality. So if you want to talk about those, I have reports and opinions. And also, the first blood donation trip of the 2018 year is on Tuesday, January 23rd. It's actually almost full, but there's still a few spots open. If you're interested, message me, email me. It's lots of fun.
On to the Director of Conferences.
Julianne is Vice President of Student Affairs. Aiden is working at Walpole right now, but he wrote down the report that we did for him. So if you are in first year and are not going to FYC this weekend, you're wrong. If you are not in first year and are not going to Queen's Engineering competition this weekend, you're also wrong. If you read my update, you will see a list of the conferences coming up throughout the semester. Everyone here needs to go to at least 2.
On to the Director of Design.
Oliver Austin, Director of Design. It's all in the report. I forgot an embarrassing photo this week, so I promise next time I'll have a really good one.
On to the Director of Events.
Julianne James, Vice President of Student Affairs. Leah's on a civil trip and is leaving 28 minutes ago. And she's not in civil, but anyway. So End Week is next week. Monday is the Brooklyn, Tuesday is game day, Wednesday is movie night, Thursday is Clark, Friday is bowling, Saturday is bubble soccer, and Sunday is T-sled. So if any of those sound like fun to you, they're selling tickets in the ILC, so you should totally go to at least a couple of them. At least 2.
On to the Director of Finance.
Sarah Dean, Director of Finance. It's in the report.
The Director of First Year.
Nick Belfari, Director of First Year. It's all in the report. Let's come to the first year conference.
Yeah. Director of Human Resources.
And Director of Human Resources, all in the report.
Director of Information Technology.
Person Cook, Director of IT. In the report, I just want to highlight that QLife has some amazing new features where you can see current IELTS serum availability. Big. So download it. Only for people that are smart.
Alrighty then.
Well, yeah.
On to the Director of Internal Affairs.
Oh, yeah.
Cough. Okay.
I'm the Director of Internal Affairs. As you can see, we have some important dates. Nominations are open. They're going to be closing next Wednesday, so go out and get your nomination forms if you want to go for exec. Also, for first years, do you want to do your part? Also, for first years, you guys can run for senators and tell your friends. Also, does not have to be a first year. I feel like probably do this. I guess technically. Whatever. Not relevant information. Also, I just wanted to mention that we do have secretary applications up now because we did have a conflict with Leah's schedule. But she did a lot of good work in the first semester, so thank you, Leah. She wrote a lot of good minutes. As you can see, I typed very slowly and very correctly, so she was very invaluable. Yeah. Run for something.
On to the Director of Professional Development.
Yeah, Nat, it's going down.
I'm yelling timber!
Wrong. Hannah's also on civil trip and is actually in civil. Leah literally just went because she wanted to go to Chicago. So the big announcement for Hannah was the Alumni Networking Summit is coming up, not this weekend, but the Saturday after that. So if you guys haven't bought tickets yet, it's a really great opportunity to network with a bunch of alumni in Toronto. It's a really fun day. It's not a lot of money. And then the other announcement, which I should have mentioned earlier, which is pretty cool, we were talking to the dean earlier today. He's trying to make some changes towards implementing a career center specifically for engineering, which is and something that I've been pushing for a while. So I'm really excited.
And finally, the Director of Services.
Oh yeah, Jill Reed, Vice President of Operations. Yeah, I did this all in the report. There's not much there. But we did have, I was actually in a meeting with them today and a few other people, and we just met with the finance committee of the board, so we just sort of went over where the services finances and saw a few things that we're going to take care of, but pretty much that's it.
We will now move into a question period for the executive and director team. Director Zelfar, did you still have any questions?
Yes, Nick Zelfar, Director of First Year. It was, with regards, like, is Wednesday going to be chopped in half? No, sure. Okay, and like Wednesday is like the day of Frost Week, not Wednesday the day of the week.
You mean like the first day of class?
Yes, like the first day.
No, and like the first 3 days should remain almost entirely the same.
Okay.
Like in terms of schedule, they'll just get shifted.
Are there any more questions for the executive? Are there any more questions for the executive and director teams? All right, seeing none, we will now move into the faculty board report.
Slide to go, faculty board. We had our meeting, so yeah.
On to the Alma Mater Society report. Guys, just please be respectful.
It's on my back. Do you have any important points on that?
The bylaw, the meeting bylaw.
There's a brand new bylaw coming to the city of Kingston called a nuisance party bylaw. Very exciting name. It sounds very terrifying and threatening, but the main points you should get out of any article you read on it or any synopsis given is that the bylaw was made in consultation with different members of the AMS, as well as Kingston Police Force and the community. So it may sound terrifying. There's very, very large fines you can get for having a nuisance party, but regular officers can't declare your party a nuisance party. It has to be a supervising sergeant, so there's only like one person per shift. So a regular officer has to call that sergeant, the sergeant has to agree that it's a nuisance party, and then from that point in time, you have like 20 to 30 minutes to ask people to leave, and only if they don't leave and continue the party will anyone be charged. Another thing with that is that landlords can also be charged if things like this happen on their property very often. One of our concerns with that was that the landlords may take that as a sign to raise rent prices, but we are trying to be sure that that won't be the case, and there wouldn't be many of these handed out per year. Julianne has more stats.
I was just going to correct, sorry, Julianne, and your first name, and then if you actually don't get charged unless you, like a police officer tells you to, like you ask people to leave, and you literally don't ask people to leave. So if people don't leave your party, even though you're trying to get them to, that's not your fault. That's then transferred to them. So the only time that you would get this fine when you withhold is if you're non-compliant.
For reference, at FOCO this year in London, which was very hectic, there was like no more than 9 total people charged with nuisance parties, and that could all be one household. We don't have the stats on how many houses it was, but in the city of a lot more, they had like 3 times the number of students we do. And only 9 people in that whole event were charged with anything. So it's very hard to get charged with a nuisance party by law. It's just to prevent situations that have happened this year, for instance, with people assaulting ambulance drivers, things like that. Calm down. Very, very large and aggressive situation.
Yeah, Robert, you can.
Also, just like one other thing that's like in our perspective when you famous. Like another thing just to add to all what they said, like it did sound really intimidating and we were all kind of thinking when we first heard about it, but like hearing more about it, it actually just like makes a lot of sense because the main goal is if it's a nuisance party, if it like spills out into a public environment, which is like that's a big thing. Like if it's in your house and it's like not going to be classified as a nuisance party, it's just like again, just to make sure that like ambulances can get to where they need to be and stuff. So like it's like very rarely used.
All right, we'll move on to the Senate report. Is there?
Next report, Senator. So we're in a bit of a Senate hiatus or lull just because it's been about over a month since the last one, about a month till the next one. At our last Senate, most of the content was pertaining more faculty than directly to students. However, at that Senate, Principal Wolf kind of announced to the Senate that the reasoning as to why he had rescinded his application for the position in a 3rd term as principal. And so, as a result of that, the Senate has had to create a committee in search of a new principal. And 2 of that will be composed of faculty members, but 2 of those faculty members that were requested for that committee are unable to participate in it. So on the 17th of January, all of Senate is participating in an online vote for those other 2 faculty members to be in that committee. If you know of a faculty member on Senate who you believe would be a strong position in that committee, it's a pretty big responsibility, and they're going to have a lot of influence on the years to come. So if you have a recommendation that you'd like to bring towards myself or Senator Corey, doing so before noon on the 17th of January would be good, and we'd be happy to take that into consideration.
Great. On to the engineering review board.
Shouldn't seniority chair. I think at some point you guys are actually all going to be able to give my report right along with me. I looked at the policy motions coming to council, or bylaw motions coming to council this week. Everything looked fine. Thank you very much.
You guys said that there was no advisory board. We will now move on to the equity officer.
One an equity officer. There's now an equity Facebook page called Equity in Engineering at Queens. So if you want to follow that, there'll be updates on like what events like engineers, WISE, Engineering Wellness Center, like our equity and engineering groups are holding, some stuff about equity and stuff happening on campus, and then just like everyone's all with just like a learning moment. So you can learn some fun stuff and improve yourself. So go like this one first. And then there's an advisory board subcommittee building on equity that's up and running, really exciting. So if you have any thoughts about our services and how to make them more equitable, like either myself or Max and Kurt, know about that, and we'll be happy to listen to you about that. So the Queen's Equity and Human Rights offices are having awards. They host them every year, and they're open to the person who can be nominated for it is both staff, faculty, and students. And their focus, the three of them focus on employment equity, accessibility, and human rights initiatives. So if you know any students and profs doing great work in that, check it out on either their, our Facebook page has a link to it, or their just human rights website has links and explaining like what each award is, because we really want to promote great things. If you have any questions with this, we know the due date to nominate people is next Thursday. So, I don't know if you have any questions.
We'll now move into the club reports with the Happy Group, starting with mechanical, after which we will say gears. So,
Mechanical.
Gears.
We haven't met yet, so there's nothing Oh, yeah. Okay, so we got Scott on here, and it's on the message center, so I don't get any of the emails. So our emails been really mixed up, so we haven't gotten any information regarding the shock stuff, and we tried to email it to get fixed. So I'm going to just okay, we'll do that. That's really
On to electrical and computer engineering, after which we will say Zach. You want to say what is it? Is it ECE? Is it ECE? So we'll say ECE. Okay. So electrical and
we're going to first year conference on Saturday. We're planning our first year discipline night, so we're trying to figure out what should be our new prize, as well as our raffle giveaway. First year's come because last year's giveaway in Xbox One. We just had our first meeting and basically did something. So yeah.
On to engineering physics, after which we will say nerds, I believe. Nerds. So engineering physics. What's this?
Omar Lozano, acting as proxy for EnchFiz rep. I'm EnchFiz exec, whatever it is. We haven't met yet, but we are planning to have a merch sale this semester, so hopefully that goes good. And cool with profs, that will happen too. Other than that, we haven't met. I have no news for you guys.
And finally, we will have our mining report, after which we will say shafts. So mining engineering.
Jeff Irvin, planning engineering rep. We met today, but not much was done. We're just trying to sort out our merch and our back as we planned after events.
Alright, so that's it for our club reports. We will now move into year reports, starting with 1-800 Psi 1-800 Fraud.
Psi 1-8.
Oh.
We're on one side present. Our year has been getting prepped for the Iron Ring event and then the Iron After Party, so pretty stoked with that. We also our thank you gift, which is the gift we kind of give back when we graduate. We are having forums, so if you have any ideas of what that could be, and our entire team, you'll see that up on Facebook and also email to you. So start thinking of ideas for that. Also, if you have yearbook pics, please send them. Like even if it's just like your #1 top pick, just send it our way, and it might get in. Also, discipline reps. Please let someone on your discipline exec know. We need photos of disciplines. It might be sad if you're disciplined. So please get them to us. And then at our last meeting, Rand brought treats made by his mom, so our meeting was better than all yours, except for me. That's all.
We'll now move into Psi 169 LO.
Psi 19 Frosh. Cody Becker, Psi 19 President. As far as I'm aware, merch has been ordered, so don't know when that gets in. Shipping times vary. And as in relation to events, we have a couple different events planned. We're still waiting on dates for those, but we're planning crest hanging, karaoke night, and maybe something potentially with nursing. Question mark? We have yet to meet. We're going to meet soon.
Okay. Now on to Psi 2 Spaghetti. No!
Psi 2 Boomer Joni, Psi 20 President. So we just sent out a little poll to make sure that we have a meeting time for this semester. Other than that, we're going to plan our year takeover in cards. So that's what we're going to do.
Alrighty then. So we will now move into statements and questions by number. Slide 21.
Psi 2 Frosh.
Nathan Smith, Psi 2 President. Not too much to update you guys on. We're still working out a time to have regular meetings and we just placed a new order for year merch. Also, back at our last meeting of the year, we did holiday sweaters and cookies. So, yeah, we're pretty cool too.
Point of information, there were over, Andrew Asla, Psi 21 Vice President, there were over 200 cookies, and I would like to have that. Kind of you.
Alright, we'll now move into the last piece of business for today, which is statements and questions by members. Do you have any statements and or questions? We'll start with President Coleman.
One insight from the president was saying having that many cookies and compensating for something.
Our slightly shorter bowl.
Also, for first thing with this one to go into, you have really cool sweaters, so that way we want to go to Geo. And then also, Throw Back at Underground is back again, so if you're of age and want to come dance and support the AMS.
That's awesome.
Representative
if Carson or Cliff or DJ Mill ever find those minutes from last year's meetings, please find a way to
distribute them.
Point of information, Carson Cook, Director of IT, I do not believe they are available on this service. I'll email them. No, we don't know.
Representative Lazan.
Orlando, Hench's Frosh, join answers because you will become superior being after you take relativity quanta, and it's awesome. We're nerds, we love it. You love it too.
Are there any more statements and or questions? Representative Trent.
If you don't want to go to that, I have a spot then continue to cover tonight.
Thanks, Libby.
Are there any more statements and or questions by members? 3, 2, Vice President.
If you have any ideas for the data, please. I only have it one thing to propose and maybe it's more active, so.
Cooper, did you have something you wanted to? I will now entertain. Moved by Cooper Mazzoni, seconded by Lana
No.
All motion to close, all four, guys. You need to vote before you leave.
Remember to click.
Remember to click. Alright, all opposed? Motion passes.